What if you could see the economic future? Not with a crystal ball, but with data. Today we're looking at this really fascinating case study from the island nation of Vanuatu that asks a huge question. How can smart, data-driven decisions protect an entire country's economy from climate change? Let's dive in and break down how they're trying to do exactly that.
Right, so this isn't just some academic thought experiment. It's all grounded in a real-world project called KIRAP. Their entire mission is to use climate information to help the nation get ready, adapt, and protect itself. The big idea here is to shift from just reacting to disasters after they happen to proactively building up resilience before they strike.
And for a place like Vanuatu, being proactive isn't some luxury, it is an absolute necessity. As we're about to see, this is a nation on the absolute front line of the climate challenge, which makes it one of the most vulnerable places on the entire planet.
And we're not talking about vague, far-off threats here. These are very real, very tangible risks happening right now. You've got rising seas that threaten to just swallow up critical roads and buildings and poison farmland. Coastal fisheries, which are a huge source of food and income, are being totally disrupted. And it gets so hot that it's even threatening people's ability to work. Literally every single part of the economy is on the line.
So when you're faced with a challenge that massive, where do you even start? Well, the answer this study puts forward is to fight back with information. And that brings us to the core concept of this whole thing, something called Climate Information Services, or CIS for short.
So what exactly is CIS? Well, to put it simply, it's the whole system of gathering, analyzing, and then delivering climate data and insights in a way that actually helps people, from farmers in their fields to government ministers in their offices, make smarter, better-informed decisions.
And probably the best way to think about it is like this. It's kind of like a super-powered weather forecast. But instead of just telling you whether to bring an umbrella tomorrow, it helps predict long-term impacts on things like farming, tourism, and infrastructure. It basically lets the whole economy prepare for what's coming.
Now, what's so cool about this is the sheer variety of data it pulls together. This isn't just about temperature and rainfall. No, to be really effective, CS brings in everything from ocean conditions and crop yields to data on where people actually live and where the most critical roads are. By connecting all those dots, you get a much clearer picture of the country's risk.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the value of a system like this, the researchers modeled two possible futures for Vanuatu. They projected the potential economic damage all the way out to the year 2050.
So here are the two paths. On one hand, you've got a lower warming scenario with a 1.7 degrees Celsius global temperature increase. On the other, a much more severe, high warming scenario at 2.4 degrees. Let's see what that difference actually means for Vanuatu's bottom line.
So here's the big question, right? If they do nothing, if there's no intervention, what's the potential hit to the country's GDP, the total value of its economy?
Even in that better, lower warming scenario, the potential loss to Vanuatu's GDP is a whopping $130 million by 2050. I mean, that's a huge blow for any economy, and it represents about 14% of their current GDP.
But in the high warming scenario, it gets so much worse. The potential loss more than doubles to $276 million. Think about that. That's a potential 30% cut from the nation's GDP. The scale of the threat is just immense. Okay, so those numbers are pretty bleak, I know. But remember, this whole story is about fighting back with data. So the question is, how can these climate information services actually knock down that massive financial damage?
And here is where you see the magic happen. Let's take that worst-case, high-warming scenario. Without CIS, the potential loss was $276 million. But with a good CIS system in place, that loss is cut down to $193 million. That is over $80 million in damage that is just avoided, purely through better information.
So where is all this damage coming from? This chart breaks it all down. You can see infrastructure takes the biggest beating by far, with over $108 million in damage. Tourism, a total lifeblood for the economy, faces a $55 million hit. And agriculture gets slammed with nearly $20 million in losses. These are exactly the areas where smart data can make a huge difference.
All right, this all brings us to the bottom line. We've seen the problem, we've seen the potential solution, but does it actually make financial sense? Is this really a smart investment?
Let's just ask the question directly. You've got to spend money to build and run a system like this, right? Is the return, the money you save on the other end, actually worth that initial cost?
The results are honestly pretty incredible, even in the better of the two climate scenarios.
For every single dollar they invest in building these climate information services, Vanuatu gets back $2.20 in avoided damages. That's more than doubling your money.
But you're going to want to see this. Look what happens in the more severe, high-warming world. The return on investment just explodes. For every single dollar spent, the benefit is $4.50. It's wild. The more severe the threat, the more valuable the information becomes.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is a direct quote from the report. The analysis concludes there is, and I quote, an almost fourfold economic gain when the climate impacts get really severe. It's just an overwhelmingly positive case for making this investment. And here's the real kicker. As amazing as those returns are, they are almost certainly a massive underestimation. The entire analysis is based on average changes in things like temperature and sea level. It doesn't even factor in the hit from more intense and frequent extreme weather events like cyclones and floods, which CIS would also help them prepare for. The true value is probably way, way higher.
Which really leaves us with one powerful final question. This analysis shows that investing in smart data can give you a return of over 400% against the damages of climate change. So, if that's the benefit of acting, what is the real devastating cost of doing nothing at all?